Shalom. I'm Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I'm going to discuss this week's Torah reading, which is Parsha Tzav, which talks about various korbanot, various offerings to God. And as we look at any word of the Torah, any sentence of the Torah, we always have to ask ourselves, what is the message that we learn from this particular sentence or this particular concept that applies to us today? It's always important to remember that the Torah is a living Torah and is a guidebook to life, teaches us how to live. So in discussing the korbanos, the sacrifices, the Torah tells us as follows. Torah tells us, Daber el Aaron v'banav lemor, speak to Aaron and his children, saying, Zos Toros hachatos, this is the law of the korban chatos, the sin offering that a person brought when he did a sin. B'makom, it should be brought in the same place asher tishachet Olah, tishachet chatos, the same place that you bring the korban Olah. The korban Olah is a sacrifice that was brought according to the Ishbitzer and many others without any wrongdoing, but just as a show of your ability to get closer to God. It was an offering brought by tzaddikim, by the righteous people. So the question is, why does the Torah tell us that the korban chatos should be sacrificed in the same place as the Olah? And the Ha'emek Hadavar, the commentary, says that it would have been more fitting to just say, but Safar Mizbeach Tishchat Chatos, the north part of the altar, that's where you should slaughter the korban the sin offering, and not connect it with the Olah, with the korban Olah. But the Yerushalmi, the Talmud Yerushalmi in Yevamos, says that it specifically says this so as not to publicize who the sinners are. Because by offering the sin offering, if you've done a sin and you make an offering and you bring it in the same place that the Olah is brought, nobody will know that you're bringing it as a sin offering and you won't suffer the embarrassment. And Rabbi Elimelech Biederman says specifically that this is to protect the person who's done an Aveira from shame. And he says that all who see that the person is bringing the korban chatos will not know that he performed an Aveira, a sin, because he's bringing it where the Olah is brought. And Rabbi Biederman points out this is an excellent example of Hashem's compassion, God's mercy on us, that even when a person sins, God seeks ways to protect him from shame and embarrassment. The concept of embarrassing another is a very, very important concept, of not embarrassing another. And there are three different phrases that appear later on in the book of Vayikra, not in this parsha, but another. And one says, Lo sisnas achicha bilvavecha. You shouldn't hate your brother in your heart. And then shortly after that, it's followed by, in fact, it's within the same sentence or sentences, Chochech tochech es amisecha. You shall correct your friend when he's done something wrong. But then it's followed by v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Meaning that if you're going to see fit to correct somebody, you think a friend of yours has done something wrong, or somebody else has done something wrong, Do it out of love, and do it in a way that you are not embarrassing that person. We learn from the incident of Tamar and Yehuda. You remember that from the Torah, Yehuda didn't realize that Tamar was his daughter-in-law. After his wife had died, he thought she was a prostitute, and he had relations with her. And she asked for his to leave his staff and his ring until he would bring back the wages for the act. And then it appeared after that, some months later, that his daughter-in-law, and he went looking to find where the person was, and there was no such person there. They couldn't find it. Number of months later, his daughter-in-law appeared to be pregnant. And because she was not allowed to have relations with another man, because she was still waiting for the youngest son to take her in marriage, so it was a penalty. There was a penalty of death for that. So she's adjudged to be guilty for death, and she's ready to be executed. And she doesn't give up the fact that the person who did this was her father-in-law. She didn't want to embarrass him. She was willing to go to her death rather than to embarrass him. And that's one of the basic places we learn this concept from. And the Gemara tells us, Noach lo la'adam she'ipol atzmo lekivshan ha'esh. It's better for a person to fall into a furnace, a burning furnace, v'al yabim pnei chavero b'rabim, rather than embarrassing somebody in public. That's a concept, that's a part of Yahavta Re'ach Kamocha. When you're loving yourself, when you're loving your brother as yourself, you don't embarrass him. Unfortunately, too many people just get off by embarrassing somebody, pointing out that they're so much better and this person really does nothing, is an ignoramus, or other ways of embarrassing. Unfortunately, the world is rife with it. We see teachers embarrassing children in the class because a child doesn't know the right answer, or a parent embarrassing a child. The Torah is very specifically, do not do that. Do not do anything to embarrass anybody. And there is a story that is told brought down in Masechet Kesubot, and it's a story about Mar Ukva. And Mar Ukva says he lived in a city, and there were poor people there, and he had a habit every day of surreptitiously going to a poor person's house and putting money inside the door so the poor person wouldn't know who it was. And the poor person was wondering always, where's this money coming from? I want to find out who's doing it. Well, one day, Mar Ukva was late to the study hall, to the Beis HaMedrash, and he and his wife were going, and he put the money into the door, and then this poor person decided he would hide to see who's leaving the money. And just as they put the money down, the poor person came out of hiding, and they saw him, and they ran away so that it wouldn't be identified, to embarrass the person, to know who was giving this money. And as they're running, they see a furnace where the coals had just been taken out. And the furnace is big enough for them to go into. They run into the furnace to hide. And unfortunately, even though the coals were taken out, the floor of the furnace was still hot. So Mar Ukva was burning his feet. And his wife said, well, put your feet on mine and they won't burn. And that's in fact what happened. And the reason she said that, she says, when people come to my house, I give them prepared food. You give them money, they have to prepare the food. So I'm more worthy of it, therefore you're saved. Then Gemara asks the question. He says, why were they risking their life to run into an oven. And they said, Noach lola adam. It's better for a person, sheipol atzmo to kivshan ha'esh, yabim pnei chaver b'rabim, rather than to embarrass somebody else. That is the message we have to learn from this. We have to be so conscious of this to bring love to everybody, and think twice before you try to embarrass somebody, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a politician, whether you're a parent. Do not embarrass anybody. Thank you for listening on behalf of the WebYeshiva.org. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.